She the splinter of wrath, she the scythe betwixt, she who wields death in her flesh and weaves a cloak from fear. My mistress, my captor. Here and now she's but a girl of 16 who's returned to a world not wise enough to cut her throat when it had the chance. Here lies Maven, struggling to stay alert as her saviors ask her question after question. 10 days ago, they found her feverish in a soiled mattress, rags pretending to be bandages about her hand, face a ruin of stitches, organs grappling with sepsis. Left for dead, left to die. Too worthless a burden to carry, too insignificant a liability to eliminate in the short time available. Maven was deathly close to a point of no return by the doctor's account, and her heart did briefly stop on the operating table. It should have been a big bust, this raid that saved her life, but all they found was a hastily emptied building full of misery and a moribund girl to tell the tale. She'd been battered and mutilated by the last client she'd ever serviced. What care she had received was not enough to stave off infection of her finger stumps. Among all her wounds, there had been fingernail marks on her legs, on the floorboards, like someone had been literally dragged away by brute force. That would have been Gemma, Maven's twin sister. She would have never left her side by choice, and it's so easy to picture their handler dragging her out, beating her senseless. Maven remembers none of this, convalescent in her hospital bed, but her memory is otherwise intact, and she has obsessively catalogued her resentment. This long-delayed interview gives her a chance at last to give them voice, and details pour out of her, oh so many, faces and names and every description she can muster, of places, of girls, of handlers, of Johns and Janes, hours, routines, procedures, policies, anything that might give the agents even the tiniest clue toward picking up Gemma's trail. She talks until her voice is a croak, long enough for the painkiller haze to lift and her 1,000 wounds to bear down on her. She's been awake for not even 1 day, and so the room swims behind a blur by the time the interview reaches her connection to the beldame. The temperature seems to drop at her mention. Cesar Delgado leans forward over his belly, sitting in his bare-bones corner chair. Jerome Wayland, standing at the foot of the bed, goes from sharp to intense. "You met with her?" he asks. "In person?" A rush of fear takes her breath, as she understands where this conversation must go. It's forbidden to discuss her, to even mention anything to do about her. Maven has to remind herself. She's free now, out of the woman's reach, but Gemma is not. If there's a chance it might help find her, she must speak the unspeakable. "Yeah," she answers. "Gemma and I, many times. Where will dames talk?" There's a stretch of perplexed silence. "And that means what exactly?" "It means she's our... We belong to her. She bought us. She's the one who broke us in." It's a gradual thing. The way Jerome Wayland's hands become fists, and his muscles tense up like he's about to be struck. His voice comes out hoarse and raw. "You are not a goddamn horse, Miss Whitehound." "Hey," Delgado calls from behind a frown. "Keep it together, man." Maven watches the exchange through her exhaustion. She's accustomed to the business-like jargon. Break a girl in, service, booking, clients, handlers, treatment, father, discipline. Keeps it all emotionless, distant. The man's reaction is a reminder of what life was like before her worth was measured by the allure of her flesh. A reminder that she's been surviving in a hidden world, festering in the gaps between normal and decent. "She looks about to pass out," Delgado says. "But I think it's you who needs a break." Wayland ignores him. "Bought you from where? How were you for sale?" "Our caseworker, we figured, for adoption. Or someone who could, decide where we ended up." She's having trouble finding the words. but she'll speak until her voice gives out. Gemma is still lost in that hidden world. And this was when? 4 years ago. We were 12. The man's deep breath shakes with outrage. It's a visible effort for him to swallow past it and keep asking questions. Do you remember the name of this caseworker as well? Karen Douglas. Curly hair, long face and nose. High-pitched voice, everything's a question. A gap between her front teeth. Her office was in the Alston building. This kid's a living database. Delgado muses as he keeps scribbling in his notepad. Such a small observation, a throwaway quip without consequence, hardly worth an answer. Yet Maven's insides are full of thorns, and the words catch on the way in. Does this man think she remembers because it's fun? It's not casual recollection, it's not photographic memory. There's a reason she remembers these names and places and pointless details. There's a damn good blasted fucking reason. They will pay for what they did. She'll make them pay, one way or another. The anger writhes in her chest, tearing at her stupor. So do you even have a plan to find my twin? Delgado's brow creases at the sudden change in tenor, but Wayland takes it in stride. I can't give you any details of our operation, he answers. But I'm sparing no resource available to me, you can believe that. We'll be checking into this caseworker, count on it. Maven's lips ache terribly as they attempt to press together. Can't give her details, or he doesn't have any to give. Despite the bone-deep fatigue, the urge is there to stop answering and start yelling, call the nurse and throw them out. All of it irrational and destructive and extremely appealing all the same. Let's circle back to the beldame. You said you met with her several times? A failed raid 10 days ago. They have no plan and no leads. The operation has gone to ground. Gemma is invisible right now, untraceable. A shuddering mouse in a dark hole. Maven knows this. She's lived it. In hardly a breath, the rage sublimates into despair. Yes, she numbly answers the question. We did. Oh, it's been a while since the last. All right. I won't ask you to relive any of it, don't worry. I only want to know more about her. Let's start real simple. Did you ever learn her actual name? Maven feebly shakes her head. She has no name. Everyone calls her Madam in person, even those who know her well. Their reaction barely registers behind the fog taking over her eyesight. It's only later, in one of the many times she'll obsessively think back to this moment, that she will realize how intent the agents were upon her words. As she lay there fighting to stay awake, some part of her noted the way they leaned forward, the way their mouths hung slightly apart. Even their breath came faster. And while trying to puzzle out what happened to her in this room, she'll realize. At the time, they knew absolutely nothing about who the beldame was. They couldn't even tell whether she was an actual person. They'd never had a first-hand account until then, when this miraculous bounty of information dropped onto their laps. And so, while considering this moment, she will also grasp the extent of their disappointment at what came next. All right, Wayland says. Fair enough. Her physical description, then. You've aced everyone so far? Yeah, sure. She understands what he's asking for, but it doesn't occur to him just how anatomically accurate her answer could be. She's... Out of nowhere, a whiff of smoke and perfume, acrid and sweet, and she stands at the side of the bed to choke Maven's voice to death. Black eyes draped in perfect eyeshadow, glimmering opals full of mischief and hunger, hazel skin on a full figure, every surface and curve is so soft. Long hair framing her face, a cascade of ink over bare shoulders, like satin gloss when she moves, like silken strands along Maven's back. Exquisite features, smooth, elegant, lively. A woman who laughs often, yet her lines do not make wrinkles. So tall above her, not quite athletic, the opposite of frail. Sharp nails hard on Maven's chin. She must bend down so far to kiss her lips. Cigarette smoke swallows the hospital room, and from the haze appears the penthouse view of an indifferent city. There is no place in this world she dreads more. This enclosure full of windows, that giant canvas of a blood-stained sylph feasting on an open carcass, hung over a bed larger than any of the forsaken pits in which she sleeps when not booked. Maven stands in this room once more, wrapped in a dress laden with ribbons and lace. Her face is burning. Her throat pounds and clamps with each heartbeat. Gorgeous little thing. The voice is steep with crags, a voice that knows it never needs to speak the same words twice. It pulls at Maven, transports her to a moment split between the past and the present. She relives the paralyzing terror as the beldame's hand leisurely unties ribbon after ribbon. They tell me you tried to leave again. She did, yes. She talked Gemma into trying to run, but that was then, and this is now. Maven cannot move, and she wouldn't dare try. Not even her lungs will be so bold as to expand. She needs to breathe, but she wasn't given permission. Take a look at your sister. She's not trying to escape now. Is she? Gemma is out on the bed, splayed, used up. There are welts and blood, but she's beyond feeling them now. Where Maven finds ways to avoid much of the oxy, Gemma embraces the refuge it offers. She doesn't want to leave, little one. She told me as much. Didn't you, darling? Her sister's moan and twitch of a hand reach into Maven's ribcage and split her heart open. This is Maven's fault. She shouldn't have hoped. What was she thinking? Her guts lurch with chills and nausea and dread as deep as her regret. She had to be punished. But it's all your doing, isn't it? Always so feisty. All of her is breaking out in cold sweat. The inside of her chest is lined with nettles. Her hands take turns between numb and crawling with spiders. She can't take it anymore. She must breathe. But her heart is taking up all of her windpipe and her skull is drowning in blood. So I think I'll keep her for a while. No, she begs. No, please. No. I'll do anything. Oh, yes. Be a good little girl for me, and I'll let you see her again. Please, don't take Gemma, please. Don't you worry. You'll see her again. When you prove I can trust you. She takes a long drag of her cigarette and leans down again, and her hand is a vice on Maven's jaw. Lips like ripe plums force her mouth open and fill her lungs with a scalding jet of smoke. Until then, you may not breathe. And here, as she suffocates on caustic fire, Maven understands. She will never be free. Vast is the river that carves the breath of Maven's wrath. Deep its winding path, choked with crimson tributaries. The source lies high upstream, where her hatred becomes wary. A tainted soul blood-soaked, keen to gorge on broken dreams. For the handlers had a boss, a sylvan crone without a name. In coded calls and ashen tales, they will call her the Beldame.